which relies on proactiveness and empirical data-based evidence garnered through R&D to enhance the current and integrating critical non-kinetic centers of gravity that are lacking or fueling the continued sustenance of the threats. Research and development plays a critical role in the national security of any nation and its allies. R&D creates the foundation for new and improved technologies that underpin a wide range of applications. These applications include advanced weapons and systems that provide intelligence, medical treatments, and troop support. The U.S. defense-related R&D, for instance, has delivered breakthroughs in computing, communications, tanks, satellites, fighter aircraft, and submarines, amongst other weapons and technologies. Investments in R&D can provide substantial technological advantages against potential and real adversaries. This is because one of the lessons learned by the armed forces of Nigeria in the ongoing operation is the need for innovative and problem-solving R&D to support his of Mr. President, when he said, and I quote, "Nigeria's dependence on other countries for critical military equipment is unacceptable. The country must evolve viable mechanisms for near self-sufficiency in military equipment and logistics production." Unquote. Inadequate use of unique cutting-edge technology, insufficient critical war-fighting equipment, and inadequate training on the procured sophisticated equipment are some of the major contemporary challenges facing the operations of the armed forces of Nigeria today. And these problems could be solved through focused and well-funded R&D. Nigeria's current R&D efforts are in silos and not in tandem with industry needs and aspirations. It is thus grossly incapable of translating into requisite innovative and technological products required for advancement in defense equipment and platform production. The expected end state of a well-coordinated defense R&D is self-reliance in platforms and equipment holdings for the armed forces of Nigeria. This is unattainable in a weak partnership between the academia, industry, and defense. There is therefore the need for a better structured, need-oriented, and well-funded defense R&D mechanism to enhance the security and territorial integrity of Nigeria. Now, the purpose of this presentation, therefore, is to highlight the strategies for institutionalizing R&D in Nigeria's defense sector. Institutionalized R&D would enhance both kinetic and non-kinetic efforts of managing our security challenges, which by extension would have potentials for immediate impact on operations. While developing this document, the Defense and Security Thematic Group visited some universities, industries, and military facilities in Enugu, Lagos, Ogun, Federal Capital Territory, with a view to collating and developing database. Additionally, the group had some cross-cutting engagements with One Health, Environment, Agriculture, and ICT and Digital Economy thematic groups. These engagements were aimed at identifying key quick impacts on non-kinetic strategies to cut off the oxygen of terrorism and insurgency through impact-oriented R&D. Therefore, the presentation will cover the following: Teflon paradigm shift, coping with the deception of global powers, Armed Forces of Nigeria R&D institutions and centers, R&D needs assessment for the Armed Forces of Nigeria, and development of strategic alliances. Others are establishing centers of excellence, strengthening the emergence of National Research and Development Foundation, and non-kinetic approach of cross-cutting issues that require immediate attention. Let us begin with paradigm shifts. The paradigm that TEFFund is promoting is to institutionalize R&D in order to project Nigeria into a knowledge-based economy through need-based, well-articulated. This is because the challenge academia, industries, and government. The way forward is to address the disconnect and interface these three critical sectors through the adoption of the triple helix model. Accordingly, the academia would generate primary research needed to develop new technology or improve an existing one. Industry would translate R&D findings from academia into requisite technologies and innovations to meet the needs of society, while the government is to provide appropriate policies, legal frameworks, and an enabling environment. The requisite key ingredient required for ensuring proper linkages and realization of a knowledge-based economy through R&D is the coming on stream of the National R&D Foundation, NRDF for short. The existence of the NRDF will bridge the existing gaps and sharpen the focus, which would place Nigeria's R&D on a firm pedestal. Next is coping with deception of global powers. The armed forces of Nigeria depends heavily on importation of military hardware, which is detrimental to the growth of R&D and the emergence of military-industrial complex. The challenge is that more often than not, the government are willing to sell to Nigeria some of the highly needed military equipment. Sometimes they pretend to be on our side, while other times outrightly blunt. Please watch these video clips. Well, I think for the benefit of those who didn't hear, it was a conversation, and the guest, the host or the hostess, was trying to find out why the situation that happened in Paris, Champs-Élysées, almost all the world powers responded immediately. Whereas in West Africa, and particularly in Nigeria, with all the problems, they had not shown any interest. And he said, well, they are, occupied, they are busy elsewhere, and that West Black Africa is not a priority. Nigeria is not a priority. That as difficult as it is, this is the hard truth, that they have the capabilities to support if they want, but it is not a priority to them. So, from the clip, it is obvious that our security situation is not a priority to the global powers. So we must not continue to depend on other countries for our defense solutions. Our dependence on foreign sources for military hardware is very risky, because when we are in dire straits, political and other constraints may block attempts to procure equipment and spare parts from the original equipment manufacturer. In 2015, some Alpha Jet aircraft brakes, brake assemblies that were sent to America and Canada by the Nigerian Air Force were seized by the repair vendors in those countries for no reason. This action adversely affected our counter-insurgency operations. Similarly, in 2014, 3 Alpha Jets were procured without weapons upon delivery capabilities. The Western countries that were contacted in the weaponization of the aircraft. The good news is that we are able to overhaul our Alpha Jet brick assemblies, and as soon as they got to know, they released the seized ones, but we already developed their capabilities. We did that in partnership with an indigenous company in Nigeria, Innocent Motors, and we achieved that. Now we can overhaul our Alpha Jet brick assembly. Talking about the aircraft that they refused to weaponize, we were able to put together a team and working with the industry and some of the academic institutions in the Kaduna area, we came up with a solution and were able to weaponize those aircraft. They've been flying for the past 5 years and there's no problem. Now, it took us over 5 years to convince the American government to sell Super Tucano aircraft to us. And after 100% payment for the aircraft, we had to wait for another 3 years for the production. Similarly, a few years ago, the government of Jordan promised to deliver some armored vehicles to Nigeria on gratis. As they were preparing the delivery, they were suddenly stopped by the British government because they are the original equipment manufacturer of some major components of the armored vehicle and needed. The process of authorizing Jordan by the British government took over 2 years. Furthermore, the maintenance time of our platforms are sometimes unnecessarily extended because of the unwillingness of the OEM to attend to our spares requests. It is pertinent to note that no nation can successfully combat adversaries when she is over 90% dependent on unwilling foreign powers for the military technology, equipment, platforms, and spares. Some of us will remember the story of how Pakistan paid the United States for some fighter aircraft. Instead of getting fighter aircraft, wheat, farm produce, was delivered to them. That was the turning point for Pakistan in R&D. Today, Pakistan, in collaboration with China, has produced fighter aircraft such as F-7 and JF-17. In April 1915, during the First World War, the Germans released the chlorine gas on the French colonial troops and later on the British troops. The British government responded by bringing together some members of the academia and tasked them to produce protective equipment and countermeasures against the chlorine gas. This was achieved within a good time. There is therefore the need to engender a homegrown solution to our security problems. Thus, the government could consider putting together several teams from the academia and industries to develop the needed unique defense solutions to address our security challenges. Now let us take a look at the R&D institutions and centers in the armed forces of Nigeria. The Nigerian National Defense Policy captured the critical role of research and development in national defense and security by stating that, I quote, Nigeria shall develop a strategy to attain a level of innovation that will enhance self-reliance and modernization of national defense, unquote. It thus identified the armed forces of Nigeria R&D institutions and centers to include Defense Industry Corporation of Nigeria, Defense Research and Development Bureau, Defense Space Administration, Nigeria Army Systems Development Center, and the Army Central Workshop. Others are Naval Dockyard Limited, Nigerian Navy Engineering College, Air Force Institute of Technology, and the specialists and the reference hospitals of the services. DICON, DRDB, and DSC are self-accounting. Nevertheless, the appropriation from the National Assembly is inadequate to conduct any meaningful strategic R&D. The other R&D centers are under service headquarters Accordingly, they are funded from the services who do not have any appropriation for R&D. Consequently, they are poorly funded and are unable to undertake any meaningful R&D efforts apart from some routine component repairs and maintenance. Therefore, the establishment of the NRDF would enhance the funding of defense R&D. Furthermore, most of the armed forces of Nigeria R&D centers have been operating in silos. Consequently, they have not been able to achieve the much desired unique technologies and self-sufficiency in equipment and platform holdings. There is therefore the need to review their establishment structure to allow for collaborations with the academia and industries. Next is R&D needs assessment for the armed forces of Nigeria. The R&D needs assessment for the armed forces of Nigeria was conducted by the thematic group through advocacy visits to the National Security Advisor and the Honorable Minister of Defense and the immediate past service chiefs, as well as armed forces of Nigeria R&D centers and operational units. Information received from the critical stakeholders in the defense and security architecture revealed that the R&D needs could be categorized into short-term, medium-term, and long-term. I will, however, talk on only the short-term R&D needs. The short-term R&D needs are the immediate critical requirements to enhance the kinetic and non-kinetic efforts of addressing our security challenges. Additionally, an understanding of the R&D needs of the armed forces of Nigeria helped us to identify the academic institutions and industries that possess the capabilities to develop appropriate defense solutions through collaborative R&D. Interestingly, there are several industries in this country with installed capacities to venture into defense-related production. They have not been approached by the academia and the armed forces of Nigeria. Similarly, there are universities that have advanced their research efforts in the area of contemporary security threats, but are unable to discuss their efforts with the military and also unable to identify appropriate industries where they could further develop and produce their research efforts. There was therefore the need for the group to develop database for competence and infrastructures in both kinetic and non-kinetic defense R&D from the universities, industries, and military establishments visited. This approach would help to build and enhance the needed strategic collaborations in the triple helix model collaborative R&D in the defense and security sector. Next is the development of the strategic alliance among stakeholders. The group's proposed model to actualize strategic alliances among stakeholders is as shown on the screen. It's a quadruple helix having the academia, industry, government, in this case, armed forces of Nigeria, and citizens. And at the apex, we have the NRDF strategic direction. And at the base, the defense-focused R&D platforms. Next is the establishment of centers of excellence. One of the outcomes of the R&D needs assessment was the realization of the need for the establishment of centers of excellence for defense R&D based on competence and needs. These centers, which will eventually form part of the military industrial complex, will be well funded from the National Research and Development Fund. Critical important manufacturing tools at these centers, such as the additive manufacturing 3D printers, can be seen soon. Apart from being cost effective, it would enhance capacity building, skill acquisition, and ultimately enhance R&D efforts within the zone. Now, let's take a look at strengthening the emergence of military-industrial complex. Military-industrial complex, MIC for short, aggregates a nation's armed forces, institutions, laboratories, and industries that develop, produce, and supply defense solutions in form of technology, equipment, and material. The Nigerian National Defense Policy stated that Nigeria's MIC shall be a combination of defense science and technology organization, DSTO, DICON, DRDB, DSA, and R&D outfits, as well as allied companies in partnership with local industries involved in military hardware and software production. Such agencies and organizations include NACENI, Nigerian Foundries, NG Vogas, Proforce, Erisco Foods, and Inosim Motors, amongst others. NACENI, DICON, DRDB, and DSA, in collaboration with the academia and some of the mentioned industries, have produced several equipment platforms and defense solutions already being used in the ongoing military operations. Despite these modest achievements, a lot still needs to be done to strengthen the capacities of these organizations and industries, while also encouraging collaborative research between them and the academia through a well-structured, focused, well-articulated, and funded defense R&D. This has the potential for the creation of a defense industry-related value chain of integrated small, medium, and large-scale industries, culminating into the national defense industry and MIC, which ultimately enhance national security. For example, a synergy between the academia and relevant government agencies like NACENI and DICON could be orchestrated and coordinated to encourage self-sufficiency in certain aspects of defense production. Similarly, collaborations between the academia, NACENI, MG Vogas, and Nigerian Foundries could enhance the production of airboats and spares for defense equipment and platforms. Therefore, the NRDF, as a key ingredient for proper linkages in the triple helix model, could be used to strengthen the emergence of the military-industrial complex in Nigeria. Next, institutional organization frameworks, collaborations, and partners. The Triple C approach structurally builds local support through the sequence of communications, cooperations, and coordination. Thus, we can achieve the following: communication, cooperation, and coordination as shown on the screen. It guarantees that in the collaboration, there will be communication, there will be cooperation, Next is proposed funding arrangement for NRDF. The NRDF will be a collaborative effort of government, armed forces of Nigeria, academia, and industry. Funding for the NRDF will be derived from 1% of GDP, public, private, and agreed that we can start with for now, because I recall that the ES in his opening remarks mentioned that thought is that anything less than 2% GDP, is not good. So let us at least start with 1%. Then we can move it forward or further. The proposed funding and allocation benefits is as follows. Looking at the 100%, we are looking at government contributing 65%. The government's return on R&D should be 30%. The others are as shown on the screen. Now, having talked about this collaborative R&D, it's important for us to see how it impacts on our national security. And this I will depict with a schematic that will be shown immediately after this. So this is National R&D Foundation. The inputs, the process, and the outputs. Definitely, it will enhance national security and even national development. Having said that, let us now take a look at the non-kinetic cross-cutting issues. The cross-cutting engagements identified key areas of collaboration and synergy which would be impactful and germane towards enhancing efforts at combating security challenges facing the nation. The interaction with the environment revealed that they can be of help in the following areas: management of pollution and waste from military exercises, preservation of biodiversity during military exercises, use of high throughput technologies. With agriculture, greenhouse gases, and development of lower carbon fuels, use of high throughput technologies. With ICT and digital economy, looking at ICT-related defense solutions, artificial intelligence, precision-guided missiles, UAVs, drones, radio and navigation equipment, simulations, spatial ISR cameras that penetrate foliage, and cyber warfare. With One Health and the pharmaceuticals, development of biological agents, spatial medical interventions and research, addressing the nutritional needs of the military, established military reference hospitals with the following priorities: trauma centers, substance abuse among the military, insurgents, IDPs, and others. Now a look at non-kinetic cross-cutting strategies towards curbing Nigeria's security challenges. The following are a few short-term interventions from cross-cutting engagements which Ted Fund may wish to support the Nigerian state, most especially the military, to carry out immediately. These are forest management, substance abuse, and ICT and digital economy. First, forest management. Forests constitute the center of gravity and a heaven for insurgents and terrorists in Nigeria. Boko Haram, cattle rustlers, ritualists, kidnappers, and hostage takers depend on them as a force multiplier. Forests exist for economic benefits in the other parts of the world. That criminal elements now use them to destabilize the Nigerian state is a problem that must be corrected immediately. The work is better done at the federal level. State governments respond to the security breaches individually, but their interventions are sometimes counterproductive and often controversial. The Defense and Security Subcommittee is of the opinion that these problems can only be solved by framing a nationwide intervention strategy involving all relevant stakeholders. The next is substance abuse. The after-action reviews carried out upon the capture of areas hitherto under the control of terrorists in the Northeast revealed large caches of controlled substances, giving credence to the assertion that the terrorists are mostly under the influence of such substances in the conduct of their ruthless mayhem. It is imperative, therefore, that an in-depth study be conducted to ascertain the level to which these substances contribute to the sustainability of the terrorist acts in the Northeast. It is also essential to unveil the logistic chain and sources of the controlled items. Next is information and communication technology. A large percentage of military platforms, equipment, and applications all run on ICT. Limitations, however, arise where military operations cannot be sustained or run seamlessly due to limited access to ICT. Currently, there are some limitations in operations due to absence of some of these strategic ICT equipment. An area that requires quick intervention is research into intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance aircraft cameras that can penetrate through foliage. This is one area that is very key, and even when you go to some of these OEMs, because these defense solutions are not always on the shelf for you to pick up, and some of them are produced or manufactured either based on the needs of the country that is manufacturing or the needs of their allies. So when you try to explain to them, it doesn't really make any sense to them, because the kind of security situation that you are passing through is not the same, and they do not see any gain in producing this and putting it on the shelf. So it's important that we look inwards and take it up as a challenge, because if we don't design, we don't develop, maybe at the stage of production, we might have to interface. Because the cameras, that are currently used, most of them, they cannot penetrate foliage. And these bandits, terrorists, insurgents, they take advantage of that. So most times, they go under the trees. And no matter how much time you spend there, you will not be able to. You will not be able to see them. This is not about thermal imager. I'm not about thermal imager. We're talking about seeing the object as it is. Thermal imager, with the heat, whatever, will give you a sign that something is there. But it's beyond the thermal imager, because there are cameras that can penetrate certain objects and all these things to reveal what is there. So there's a need for immediate research into cameras that can penetrate foliage. The successful outcome of this R&D effort will greatly enhance military operations. The adoption of the following three-pronged approach is essential and critical to the attainment of the proposed objective. Step 1, setting up of a technical committee. The setting up of a technical committee, which would mainly consist of members of the Defense and Security Subcommittee and co-opted members from One Health, Environment, Agriculture, and ICT Subcommittee. The technical committee would work out actionable proposal for the convening of a stakeholders meeting. Step 2, convening of a stakeholders meeting. The stakeholders meeting to be convened will include critical stakeholders like Office of the National Security Advisor, Governors Forum, relevant MDAs, National Assembly, Chief of Defense Staff, Service Chiefs, heads of security and paramilitary agencies. None of the activities can be successfully done without the support of local government functionaries and traditional rulers. Step 3, drawing up an action plan. The expected outcome at the end of the stakeholders meeting is a strategic and operational plan which will detail the quick impact kinetic and non-kinetic strategic approaches to combat security challenges in Nigeria. Next is observations from visits to institutions, industries, and military establishments. We'll first of all take a look at some of the visit slides before I list out the observations. These are some of the visit slides. National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, our visit to NASENI, visit to e-nursing, Military Formations and University of Lagos, a visit to Port Harcourt, the floating dock at the Naval Shipyards, and MG Vogas, the company that we collaborated with in the production of airboats. Institutes and industries in Enugu State. Institutes and industries in Kaduna State. Now, this was a talent hunt competition. You can see the executive secretary there. This was a wonderful opportunity to bring together young talented Nigerians in the area of UAV technology. The winner went to 6 million naira, and the talented young men in this area. Currently, we have put them together and they are working on some strategic, some operational UAVs. The observations are as follows from the visits: shops and laboratories, laboratory space to conduct defense-related R&D, to support both kinetic and non-kinetic components if commissioned to do so. Some of the industries have installed. There are some equipment that have limited the advancement of R&D efforts in some organizations, whereas those same equipment are available in other organizations within the same locality unknown to the former. Information on common user equipment would enhance R&D in our institutions. Power supply is a challenge to most of the institutions and industries. The infrastructure in some of the universities and industries require to have R&D units, and also not in collaborations with the universities and research institutes. Poor funding for R&D and staff development. Need to set up a national science park. Inadequate training on the use and maintenance of sophisticated equipment and platforms procured by the armed forces of Nigeria. Sometimes the time allotted for training on some of these sophisticated equipment is not enough for the personnel to master the operations and the maintenance. And it is not as if it is deliberate, but sometimes it is because of service exigencies, because you want to acquire this all-important equipment, you want to deploy it fast. But one thing is key: if they have not developed the capacity, they cannot use it well. So you have situations whereby a highly sophisticated equipment has been procured, and because not enough time has been given for the training, only for them to start doing like on-the-job training in operational area does not really augur well, because in most cases it's not maximally put to use, and when they have maintenance issues, it's also a problem to maintain. So it's important that despite the situation with firms, arrangement must be made staggered in such a way that the people who are eventually going to man this equipment in the field are given enough time for training. Before the advent of this insurgency, we used to have a well-defined training pattern. Maybe at a certain rank, you can go on maybe 3, 4 months or 5 months training on the same equipment. And by the time you move to another rank, you are going back to the same equipment, maybe a further training. So by the time you are a senior NCO, maybe you started as a junior NCO, you are now an authority on this equipment. But because of the situation we find ourselves, that luxury of time is not there. But this is an issue that we really need to look at if we are to maximally deploy the equipments that we have. And that is why we think that with R&D, because now if it is indigenous to us and we are building, we developed, we build from scratch, our people will be involved. The space will be available. The knowledge will be there. The training that is required is there. It is not a case where some of these foreign powers, for certain reasons, will not give you the required time that is needed for you to attain the capabilities to operate these machines. Sometimes they give more time to their people, but they give funny reasons for not allowing our people to gain the capability. So we must look inwards. We must be able to start thinking. We must be able to develop this equipment, no matter how crude. Let us start from somewhere. No matter how crude, the insurgent operation is not that sophisticated. So if we start by using some of those indigenously developed crude equipment, we can further improve on them. But until we start, we will not know our limitations and how to move forward. So I think R&D, institutionalization of R&D, will be a great, help to the R&D development in the armed forces of Nigeria. The last one here is need for talent hunt competition in defense-related technology. Most research institutes expend a lot of effort by themselves at their expense of looking for business partners for optics. This calls for the establishment of NRDF to coordinate research efforts among stakeholders. So, in conclusion, investment in R&D can provide substantial technological advantages against potential and real adversaries. However, Nigeria's current R&D efforts are in silos and not in tandem with industry needs and aspirations. One of the ways of addressing this challenge is through the institutionalization of R&D in Nigeria by establishing the National R&D Foundation. The National R&D Foundation will enhance both kinetic and non-kinetic efforts of managing our security challenges, thereby enhancing our national security. Let us now look at the way forward. Establishment of an independent NRDF to be domiciled under the presidency. Enhancing the funding of defense R&D through the proposed NRDF. Reviewing the establishment structure of the Armed Forces of Nigeria R&D centers to allow for collaborative research with the academia and industries. Government to constitute committee comprising members of the academia, industries, and the armed forces of Nigeria to brainstorm and develop the needed unique defense solutions to address our security challenges. So far, strengthening the emergence of the military-industrial complex through the proposed National R&D Foundation. Establishment of National R&D Centers of Excellence. Therefore, to immediately approve the setting up of a technical committee comprising Defense and Security Subcommittee and some members from ICT, One Health, Environment, and Agriculture subcommittees to work out actionable proposals for the convening of stakeholders meeting to address the issues of forest management, substance abuse, and unique technologies. approve and form the stakeholders meeting, convene a technical committee to research into the production of appropriate ISR aircraft cameras that can penetrate foliage, approve the sponsorship of the 2021 talent hunt competition in defense-related technology. Thank you for your rapt attention. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much, sir. And I think it has been a wonderful presentation. And let me say that yes, we had initial challenges, but now that we've been able to overcome it, I'm happy to report that yes, it has been a successful presentation. Permit me to finally say this about the presenter, because I think I missed this out. Before I'm going to make more comments on the presentation, the presenter actually has some distinguished marshal and the following award and decoration before he left the Nigerian Army: General Staff and General Service Staff, Past Staff College Jaga, is a fellow of the Defense College, fellow of the International Agency for Emergency Managers, fellow of Nigerian Society of Engineers, and essentially is blessed with 3 children after being married. Thank you very much, ABM, for your presentation, and I thank everybody for listening. So it's going to be a good time for us now to actually engage with him, and I will start immediately by actually allowing the Vice Chair of RDSC to speak, maybe a comment 3 minutes in the sequence. I mean, the following sequence I'm going to mention. But before I say that, we've opened the chat room now. After we have already control people that are inside this meeting room, not like before. So kindly let us make our comments, and we can actually introduce ourselves by mentioning our name, our designation, our institutions. Use the opportunity to use ourselves. On the platform now we have, and we can start doing that, and we can make our comment on the presentation. Those that we can take in the next 1 hour in terms of interaction. Through speaking, we can do that. Otherwise, we can type in the chat box, and from the chat box, we can harvest it for the group so that we can move on. Let me start by inviting Professor Anya to actually make his comments, followed by Engineer Mansour Ahmed, and followed by Mr. Lai Jayola, before we open the platform. I can see Professor Abubakar's app up. I can see that of Dr. Andy Ieme and a host of others that are already raising up your hand. But kindly let us give the Vice Chair the opportunity to open the floor for this interaction. Professor Anya, sir, you have the floor. Just kindly unmute yourself because everybody has been muted. Unmute yourself when you want to speak. So, Prof, sir, you have the floor. Professor Anya, I can see you, sir. Just unmute yourself, sir. Unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Clearly, sir.
Can you hear me?
Clearly, sir.
Okay, thank you. Well, let me congratulate the AVM. It was a well-researched and well-presented summary of our current situation. And what I appreciated is that there is no attempt to, as it were, cover up anything. He presented us in our nakedness. But it is not, I believe he's doing that not to get satisfaction, but in order to let us know that we have a lot of work to do. But I'm particularly interested in where they collaborated with existing industries, like the one they did with Innos, and they found that what they couldn't do elsewhere, they were able to do it.
I am hoping that the NRDF, when it starts functioning, and these various thematic groups, when we continue interacting, will make a quantum jump in Nigeria's capacity to solve many of its problems. Part of the problem many times is that we do not even know what we have, that your next door neighbor, properly engaged, can produce the result we normally would have gone far away to look at. And I think I'm also impressed with this ability to disabuse our minds that you have friends out there. It is best to assume there are no friends, because the CNN discussion that he showed us, even though the audio did not work as well as one had hoped, but it was important in that it tells us exactly in the kind of world that we live in, and the fact that we must depend upon ourselves to a large extent. So once more, thank you for the presenter, and thank you for the thematic group. I hope that we all will recognize that we have a challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your brief comments, but very loaded. We appreciate you as usual, sir.
Thank you.